Thank you, Don. I am here today as representative of the Corey family. The Coreys have been affiliated with the Bethel Church for most of its 93 years. I thought about it the other day. I've been around for about half of that time. The family's association with the Bethany Church actually goes back further than 93 years. My great-great-grandfather, Robert B. Corey, was an auctioneer in this area in the latter part of the 19th century. He was a well-known eccentric who had 2 barns on his property northwest of Syracuse. And between the barns was mounted a sign which read, R.B. Corey, veterinary surgeon, or Lucky Bob of Ginger Hill never worked and never will. Despite the sign, he was a successful auctioneer and farmer, and donated what was at the time the large sum of $75 toward the construction of the Solomon's Creek United Brethren Church. Lucky Bob wasn't known as a particularly religious man, and whether he ever attended the church after it was built is open to debate. The first Corey with a serious commitment to the Brethren Church was Bob's son, Lincoln. He was also an auctioneer, and at the age of 18, he became a member of the Church of the Brethren. In 1912, Lincoln Corey was thrown from his buggy when his horse was frightened by an automobile. A broken leg combined with a heart ailment resulted in Lincoln's death a few weeks later. In his obituary in the Syracuse Journal, he was quoted as often saying, "I have made many mistakes, but I am trying to point the right way to my children and lead them all to Christ." Many of you here today knew one of Lincoln's children, my grandfather, Lee Corey. Grandpa's diaries indicate that the church was the cornerstone of his life. The entries are full of the Brethren churches he attended and where he preached. New Salem, Rock Run, Milford Chapel, and of course, Bethel. The margins of the diaries are filled with the Bible verses that he read each day. Lee followed in the footsteps of his grandfather and father and became an auctioneer. However, his true calling was to the ministry. As I reviewed his diaries recently, I was struck by the entry from September 3rd, 1915, the day Lee returned from auctioneer school in Chicago. He wrote, "Left Chicago at 12:50 and reached Milford at 6:04 p.m. Church at Bethel." After a long day of traveling, his top priority on arriving home was to attend a Friday evening service in this building. In Luke 12:34, we read, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." This church was a treasure to my grandfather, and his heart was here. On March the 1st, 1916, Lee married Clara Alice Neal, who many here will remember. She came from a family with a long history in the Church of the Brethren. Her grandfather, William F. Neal, became a minister in 1878 and served the Eel River congregation. She was equally dedicated to the church. When I think of her, I remember going to her house as a child and taking out tree stumps. She and I would go out, a small child and a small woman, hatchets in hand, and take out stumps a piece at a time. The same quiet determination with which she attacked those stumps served her family and her church well through the years. And then there were my parents, Neil and Arlene, who spent most of their lives in this congregation. They progressed through their lives as newlyweds, parents, and grandparents, along with many of their dear friends who are here today. And I started to make a list of those friends, but as I look around, they're too numerous to mention. It is appropriate that this ceremony is occurring in June, which is a month of commencement. Mary and I watched our son Pete go through commencement last week. For him, it was a time of ending, the end of high school. But commencement is, by definition, a time of beginning. The student enters the new life passage with commencement. And so it is for the Bethel congregation. Today is the end of meetings in this building. It is the beginning of a new life as part of a larger congregation as Bethel merges with Bethany. The concept of combined endings and beginnings is not new to Christians. In 4 different passages in the book of Revelations, God says, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." Each ending is a new beginning. In his diaries, my grandfather declared his own new beginning on July the 10th, 1917. The entry on that day reads, Commencement Day 1917. Commence serving God in a more vigorous, earnest manner today. The Corey family salutes the Bethel congregation on this commencement day, and I leave you with these words from the book of Numbers, which my grandfather repeated many times here and at home. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.